Hey y'all, welcome to Cross Politic. It's good to be with you this evening. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox, I'm the water boy. Why is conservatism going gay?
We're going to find out.
And if there was something you wanted to say to a woman, what would it be?
I don't know, but I think there's a book that's written about it.
I say it to my woman every night.
I love you, girl. What's up now?
What's up now? You the best thing since sliced bread, girl. Do your thing, girl. Yeah, I say it every night.
All right, first, we need to stop. We need to stop that. Stop. Sharon, come get your man. Let's stop and take a moment to talk about the Fight Laugh Feast Club membership. By joining the Fight Laugh Feast Army, not only will you be aiding in our fight to take down secular and legacy media, but you'll also get access to the content placed in our club portal, such as past shows, all our conference talks, and exclusive content for club members that you won't be able to find anywhere else. Nope. Lastly, you also get discounts at all our conferences, $100 off, in fact. So you got a few extra bunts lying around.
It's baseball season.
Kick them over our way. Sign up at flfnetwork.com. All right.
I'm so excited.
Are you ready?
Are
you ready?
Yeah,
hey, we're really grateful to have with us Ms. Denise McAllister. Denise is a journalist and cultural commentator who has written for several publications, including The Federalist and PJ Media, and is co-author of the New York Times bestseller, Spygate, the attempted sabotage of Donald J. Trump. I read this just a minute ago to Gabe, and then a minute later he was like, hey, guys, did you know that she wrote Spygate?
Yeah.
The attempted sabotage of Donald J. Trump?
See, the thing is, Toby was talking to my deaf ear. And
I'm glad we had this pre-show meeting. Denise has also appeared as a commentator on Fox News, BBC, NPR, and Cross Politic.
Hey!
That actually says the Sean Hannity radio show, and numerous other radio programs across the United States. She is also a Christian apologist who studied systematic theology, apologetics, philosophy, and Christian history at Reformed Theological Seminary.
RTS.
So you guys better watch out. Denise, thanks for coming on Cross Politic.
Thank you for having me. It's a delight to be here.
So, Denise, how did conservatism get to the point where Dave Rubin is now the face of the movement?
Well, because our culture has redefined love. I really think it's as simple as that. When you redefine love and people, what do you want to be, in society? Do you want to be seen as the person who's hateful, who's mean, who's nasty, who doesn't love anyone? That is the essence of identity politics and white guilt, straight guilt, man guilt, whatever kind of guilt you want to lay on people. It's all rooted in you're not a loving, nice, kind, just human being. And so you're silenced. And you're shut down, you're delegitimized, you're canceled, you're fired, whatever it is, because you're not seen as the good person along the lines of whatever society has deemed to be good. And with the gay agenda, it's all about redefining what love is. And so we as conservatives, we're like, well, our definition of love comes from the created order designed by God. God is love. God defines love. He reveals what love is in his son, in his word. And when our culture says, no, it's not God who defines love. It's we, whatever I feel, whatever the individual is, love is love. That's the message we hear all the time. And so I think conservatives, because they're terrified of being silenced and canceled and seen as the mean, bad, unloving, hateful guy, they've like, oh no, we're on board. We're on board with the LGBT plus train because we're really good people. Don't you know we're really good people? So it's straight guilt. I really think is
straight guilt.
Denise, but help me. I mean, again, I bring up Dave Rubin because Jordan Peterson just interviewed him on the Daily Wire.
Gay parenting, and
I'm thinking, but I mean, I thought the Daily Wire would be, of all places, I've seen so many videos where, Ben Shapiro owns the libs, where whatever, they're standing up and they say, you call me hateful, you call me a bigot, whatever, but I'm not really, I'm standing on the truth. I'm standing on natural law, whatever. And then they do that. And I'm like, but how did they get there? I understand how, I don't know. I guess I understand how Hannity interviews Bruce Jenner.
Kind of a soft version of conservatism.
And acts, like Fox is sort of like, they've always been kind of, soft and vague. But I guess I thought Daily Wire had more of a backbone. How do they get there?
Well, I used to write for Daily Wire, and I was canceled by Ben Shapiro because I offended a gay man who had attacked my family.
Oh,
That happened 3 years ago.
Uh-oh.
So, no, Daily Wire does not have a backbone when it comes to these issues. They are more libertarian than they are conservative. Ben Shapiro definitely opposes same-sex marriage. I think if you caught him in a dark room in a back alley and you were forced out of him, he would say, yes, I agree with Leviticus that homosexuality is an abomination and a sin, but he will not come out strongly against the LGBT agenda that is trying to, has succeeded in establishing homosexuality as an identity, as a human identity. And you got to remember, once you've decided that homosexuality is an identity, rights must go with that. That's why the LGBT agenda is all about identity. It's not about love. It's not about what we do in our bedrooms. It's about identity. So Ben has bought into that because a lot of these conservative outlets, a lot of where their money comes from, a lot of what they rely on to protect their brand. And when Ben Shapiro wrote me and said, you need to disassociate from Daily Wire, where we're canceling you, basically, you have got to leave because you've offended this gay man by calling out his sexuality online. He said the reason is, and he told me this, is because I have got to protect my brand. That is exactly what he said. And he said it several times. And I was like, Ben, do you know what's going on here? And what the fight is? And he's like, it doesn't matter. I've got to protect my brand. So this is what these conservatives are. You talk about conservative media. They're all about protecting their brand. Politicians are all about protecting their campaign, their office. So they're going to cave in areas where money's involved. There's a lot of money in conservative gay world, a lot of money.
Really?
A lot of investors come from homosexual conservatives or libertarians. So they don't want to offend these people. And they also they can go against the trans, they can go against Black people, and they can go against CRT, critical race theory, because there's not money tied up in that. There's not hanging out with them at the cocktail parties. They're hanging out with the friend homosexuals, but they're not hanging out with the people who embrace critical race theory. So, these are the webs that are very threads and webs that tie it all together. And it's a real thing. It's money, it's power, it's prestige, it's status, it's who your friends are, and it's wanting to protect your brand.
Well, I've got a boatload of, like, a dump trunk of questions right now. Denise, you got to help me understand why a homosexual would want to be connected to the conservative movement when traditionally it has completely rejected she's got the face like, you ain't ready for this truth.
She's like, boy, you don't want this answer.
You ain't ready for this truth. Go ahead, Denise. I'm just curious.
Well, it's interesting. Back in the late 80s, there was a book written called After the Ball.
Yeah.
And it was an entire manifesto about how to normalize and streamline and get and legitimize homosexuality. The goal there was always to be normalized. And again, to be accepted as an identity so that they have the rights and everything's tied up in having, this is who I am. It's about being, it's about identity. So it was not enough. And in that book, it made it clear, it's not enough to simply oppose conservatism or Christianity, because that's going to be a fight that you're always going to have. And you can't go out like in your pride and strip down and be gross and talk about what you actually do in the bedrooms. The book itself said, normalize, normalize, normalize. You're actually just as normal and vanilla as the straight couple down the street. Right. You're just as good of a parent as the heterosexual couple down the street. You're just as good of a Christian as the Christian sitting in the pew next to you who's heterosexual. So, this is the normalization that must happen to be accepted. And so what's happened is not an opposition to conservatism and Christianity, but a subversion of it. So that's why you see people like Pete Buttigieg, who's like, I'm the Christian. I know how to interpret the scriptures. These are bad Christians. Christians who do not embrace homosexuality are bad Christians. We're the good Christians. So they're undermining it. They're kind of like Satan in the garden with Eve. Satan didn't say, God's the bad guy. He said, did God really say that?
Right. Right.
You can really choose who you want to be, Eve. God loves you. Did God really mean that you die? God doesn't really mean that. So he subverted the religion rather than taking a full-on assault, because that just didn't work. They tried that in the 60s and 70s. It didn't work.
So I was my whole read on the Daily Wire is that it's an unsustainable worldview, because what their company worldview is based off secularism. You have the Jewish religion there. You have the Catholic religion there with Matt Walsh. You have the evangelical religion there with Jeremy Boring. But what they all agree to is that there's this neutral operating grounds that they can operate their company off of, and those different theological worldviews don't come into conflict. So that was my view. But you're telling me basically that the Daily Wire is going gay over more money than actually even that secularistic business worldview.
Well, I think the business worldview and the secular worldview that compromises all of those individual views that you just named of those people is about money. So it is about protecting the brand. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. There's nothing wrong with protecting your brand.
We want some.
What are you doing? What is your brand based on? And what are you sacrificing in the long run in order to protect it? Are you going to stand on principles in the culture war that will silence and cancel you? See, Ben Shapiro can speak out against transgenderism because he's really not going to get canceled over that. He's not going to get canceled over his offense to Black people. They just don't have the power that gay people have. It's interesting in intersectionality. You have these hierarchy of marginalized people,
right?
Who are fighting over who's the most marginalized, and whoever is the most marginalized will have the most power. Well, now today it's not Black men. They have no power. They're not up there. You're pretty much silenced. It's Black women are higher than you, but gay men, are probably up there with Black women, probably a little higher. Maybe gay Black women are even higher on the marginalized and have even more power. So all I know is that in the culture today, because of Hollywood, and I really give a lot of bad credit to our entertainment industry, in which Americans are completely googly-eyed and they're so brainwashed by watching Netflix and all the rest of it, that they have been nudged and pushed and massaged and soaked in this perversion and sexual immorality, that they've embraced it. And so the marginalized group and the people who have more power are the gay people and not all these other marginalized groups.
Okay, so if this is happening inside of conservatism, which is shocking it really is shocking to me. I thought that there was a more virtuous conservatism than there was. I was wrong about that. You're laughing. But also, so I have to think, okay, if this is opening the door, homosexuality is becoming normalized inside of the conservative worldview, does it mean that the pro-life movement probably is on its way out to? What else is coming next after this? Are we going to be a pro-choice option soon here, or is that going to be pushed aside too?
Well, it's all about, it comes in waves and it ebb and flows about where power is and what will get you canceled and silenced and marginalized, and who has what's called moral authority within the culture. In the future, will there be a rise of pro-choice that's able to move the culture away from the pro-life that has gained a lot of ground recently back to guilting them? Because remember, back in the 90s, conservatives were ashamed to even go to conferences with people who were pro-life. They really distanced themselves from the religious right. Wow. Remember, this is, the Ralph Reed crowd and the real pro-life crowd. It's like, hey, we're all good as long as we don't talk about abortion, because abortion makes us look like mean, nasty people. And we want women to come into our party. So let's not talk about abortion so much. Well, over time, because of a lot of different factors and good, strong opposition and pro-life, we overcame that stigma and that kind of marginalization against abortion, against pro-life people, to gain power within the culture, even though I don't think we have quite the power we think we did. We won a court battle, but that doesn't mean we're going to, we've won this whole fight against pro-choice. I still think that's the dominant worldview now. So don't think for a minute that because we won that court battle that that we're not having a fight in the states over saving babies.
Right.
The mindset's still there to be pro-choice. So it's just about who has the moral authority, who has the power in culture to direct laws. I mean, look what we have going on in the Congress. We just passed a law to codify same-sex marriage because they don't want it overturned. Yep. And so that's where the power is. And for now, right now, it's the homosexual agenda. And there's a reason for that. You know, it's when you reject God so outright, like our society has, you're only left with this kind of subjectivism about who we are and who our identity is. And when you remove objective reality, all you have left is whatever I define myself to be. Yep. And that just leads to chaos and destruction in the long run.
Okay, I got a follow-up question to that, but first
I want to talk about journalism.
Hold on, just a second. I'm supposed to read this. Okay. Boniface Woodworking exists for those who enjoy shopping with integrity, who want to buy handmade wooden furniture, gifts, and heirloom items that last for generations, from dining tables and church pulpits to cigar humidors and everything in between. Quality pieces that you can give your children's children, tie them to their roots, and transcend the basic function of whatever they are. So start voting with your dollars and stop buying cheap crap from people who hate you.
That's right.
Visit www.bonifacewoodworking.com to see the gallery, learn the story, submit your order for heirloom quality wood items today.
And supporting the people that support us.
That's right.
Facts.
That's right.
Can I talk about journalism?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Denise, I got to ask you. So right now, you know, looking at your Twitter, you are a firebomb. You are out there throwing haymakers and hitting targets.
Just reckless. Just reckless.
No. It's a skilled art.
I mean, you should be canceled from Twitter by this point,
I'm surprised that you haven't been. But as a journalist, one of the things that we're seeing is the failure of journalism right now. We don't have anybody out there fending for us, the common man. Where would a journalist rightly need to put their time and energy into to kind of have a impact in the culture right now, to maybe turn this ship a little bit?
Well, are you talking about journalism as in straight news reporting? And where can you get actually truth as far as what's going on in reporting? Are you talking about cultural commentary?
Well, I think we got a lot of, maybe both.
She knows her distinctions there. That's
I think
good.
both. Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't find too many of those that are helpful right now.
Yeah, I think when it comes to truth in journalism and good reporting, it's hard to find. You have to kind of just weed through it yourself and try to discern the facts and have a variety of different sources that you go to try to weed through it. And sadly, it's so much of this is corporately controlled. You know, it's whatever's politically correct with behind the scenes, whatever everyone's agenda is. That drives all these narratives, and it does affect the state of journalism. As far as like conservative commentary itself, I mean, we have a lot of commentary. I mean, they're a dime a dozen. You can't really even make money at it because they can hire you for free and have anyone publish stuff at these blog posts. So it's difficult to find really good conservative commentators, especially those who have a grounded worldview. Mm-hmm. You know, you have a lot that are reactionary conservatives who are just reacting to the liberal agenda. You see that, I think, a lot at Fox News, the Bonginos and Sean Hannity, and these are friends of mine. So I mean, I'm not bad mouthing them, but they're very reactionary with slogans and these ideas and we repeat over and over again. And then you have these liberty-based, I would say, conservatives, and you see that a lot at Daily Wire, at even now National Review now, which used to be the bulwark of conservatism, but they have some messiness over there. And I think isn't one of their head guy now gay and married to a man, I think.
Oh, man.
So it's if I'm wrong about that, I apologize, but I think that's correct. Okay. And the Federalist, also very libertarian influence, even though I think it's moving a little bit now more conservative since Ben Domenech left. So maybe it's left back to Molly a little bit more, Molly Hemingway, who's more conservative. I don't know what's going on there. So it's interesting because that libertarian liberty movement has really infiltrated the conservative ranks. And that's problematic because that worldview is very different from the classic conservative Christian worldview. It's that natural law, liberty, do no harm, Hobbesian kind of, survivalism,
Right.
kind of libertarianism, and it's secular in nature, and that's what you pick up on, and like you were saying about Ben Shapiro and Daily Wire, I think they've circled the wagons now, not around a cohesive, solid worldview that is unchanging no matter what, but around liberty. Mm-hmm. And liberty is not the worldview that we circle our wagons around as conservatives. Mm-hmm. And, we circle our wagons around solid core biblical principles in a created natural order designed by God.
Right.
That's what we are focused on. That's our solid ground. All the rest of it is sifting sand. Are we going to build our conservative movement on the rock of Jesus Christ declared word and God's worldview and God's created order? Or are we going to build it on liberty and be like France? I mean, that's what happened with the French Revolution. Right. It was based on liberty. And, liberty alone does not carry you through all these waves, of truth and subjectivism. Everyone's free to have their own truth. You're free, you're free, you're free. But that isn't what carries you through to having a true, free, and civil society. Mm-hmm. It's what the American Revolution was built on, which was built on these core foundational biblical principles. And not that they were all Christians, but they certainly all worked from the same Christian biblical worldview and said so. Mm-hmm. So, but we've abandoned that. So once you abandon that, and whenever I talk to anyone, there's a lot of questions about the ins and outs and everything, but it really does come down to, if you have abandoned God's truth, if you've exchanged God's truth for a lie, as Paul says in Romans 1, you are going to be given over to the depravity of your ways. And that it leads to chaos and depravity in an uncivil society and ultimately tyranny. So this is what's happened. Once we've abandoned, and I believe we have, as a majority, abandoned God's objective truth, even to the point of abandoning it about human identity. And this is what's so bad about the LGBT thing, is that unlike any other sin and any other issue, it at its core is an abandonment of human identity. Abortion is an abandonment of personhood in the womb. LGBT is about an abandonment of who we are designed God as human beings.
So, I mean, there's so much we've been talking about, but I can't think that a lot of this conversation about conservatism going gay is it's connected to why we got Trump in 2016. I grew up in Texas. Bush was my man, and then I realized that this compassionate conservatism really is soft. It really is gay.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of conservatives, got frustrated with that compassionate conservatism because they realized it's not really fighting for them. And then Trump comes along, and he's a fighter, and he's all screwed up in all sorts of ways, but at least he's fighting. What's your take on, and maybe this comes into your book on what men want to say to women but can't, and we get Trump.
Wow, talk about a segue.
Wait, what?
It is a good segue in the sense of when back in 2015, I wrote a lot. I was writing The Federalist, trying to explain to people in the conservative movement and the never Trumpers at the time, who I was warring with, about why people were supporting Donald Trump. Because you remember that back then, the never Trumpers were like, he's not principled, we're a principled movement. These are the same people, by the way, who are now like embracing same-sex marriage and the homosexual agenda.
That's right.
They're so principled. Right?
Facts.
Yeah.
Supporting porn actresses off screen and all kinds of bizarre things.
Are you talking about David French?
Oh my gosh, the retweeting of these porn actresses. I don't know. Did he not notice that we noticed? But anyway, so it's you're so principled, but yet you can't handle Donald Trump because he's had some divorces and talked about pussies in a Hollywood, grabbing them in the Hollywood film thing.
Right.
And so this was so offensive to them. We can't possibly vote for them. And all these people who are voting for him are just stupid. And why are all these men supporting him? Don't they know he's not a real man? And, so I was constantly explaining to them that, throughout the Obama years, and even before that with Clinton, we were as a conservative not just the Republican Party, but conservatives as well, being beat up with white guilt, a lot of white guilt and man guilt. Men were being beat up on. Feminism has just taken it whole on masculinity and the whole psychology of men today. I meet so many men who are given up. Then you have men who've become really angry and almost embraced misogyny as a reaction because they're so angry. And you have others trying to wade through the waters and know how to be a man in this culture. And so we have that frustration. And then, you did have the white guilt that was going on with the Obama years. You couldn't say anything against him because if you did, you were a racist. And, I was telling people are tired of being called a racist because they criticize this guy. It has nothing to do with his skin color.
I feel attacked, Denise. I feel attacked.
I know. It's just like I got called racist so much, and I'm like, I've never been called a racist in my entire life, and suddenly in this election, suddenly I'm this huge racist, and it's bizarre. So I mean, it just made people angrier and angrier, and then of course the nationalism with the immigration issue and all that kind of stuff. They wanted a fighter. They wanted someone who stood up to the PC politics, and said, enough, this is stupid. And that's what Trump did. They ended up canceling him in the end. I mean, they tried it with, the whole Russia thing. I wrote a book with it with Dan Bongino. It didn't work, but then they finally, in this last election, cheated their way into delegitimizing him. But I mean, that's why it was a reaction to all of this. And you're going to start getting a reaction, to this in the straight guilt with the LGBT. You're seeing some of it. But I think this is a little harder to deal with because that love issue that's so tied to criticizing the LGBT really sinks deep in people, and they do not want to be seen as not loving. Okay.
Do you have like 10 minutes? Still, I know we get okay. That's great. Listen, if you are not a Fight Laugh Feast Club member, it's about to get crazy because I'm about to give Mrs. McAllister a full journalistic army. I want to know what she's going to do with that arm and restore journalism if she had the ability to do it with the unlimited budget.
That's what you're going to do?
That's what I want to do.
Fund it? You're going to fund that?
And she's going to finish answering your question. Okay. So, might want to become a club member right now. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. It's about to go down. This is Cross Politics.
Knox loves this power.
Oh, man.
He loves this power.
This is where Dave and I plan this year's company holidays.
Let's go through the list.
Easter.
Too religious.
St. Patrick's Day?
Too white.
Mother's Day?
Way too cisgendered.
All of your usual holidays have been canceled this year.
But we still have Karl Marx's birthday!
Need a real reason to party? Find a new job at redballoon.work.
The season of Augustine and the season of Cassiodorus were very different moments in a crucial transformation that occurred in the history of the Western liberal arts. All right, so just stay like this. How am I doing here? So, yeah, you don't like this, huh? What does a Christian education look like when non-Christians are the ones who control the institutions of learning? This is a question that confronted Bishop Augustine of Hippo in North Africa in the 5th century AD. Augustine lived at the twilight of the Roman Empire. He himself had been trained with the best learning that Rome at that time had to offer. He himself actually came through the ranks and taught rhetoric in some of the best schools. And it was then, after he had come of age, that he converted to Christianity, but he wanted to continue the project of education, but this time for Christians. And so he had to confront the question, what does a Christian education look like when the unbelievers control the field? When they control the institutions, when the whole apparatus and curriculum of learning emerge from a pagan environment. And so Augustine wondered, what is it that Christians should jettison? What is it that Christians can embrace? What is it that Christians can adopt but in modified form? These are the questions that Augustine confronted when he sought to educate Christians in an environment when unbelievers dominated the field. A century later, we see a man in the south of Italy named Cassiodorus, who faced a very different educational landscape. He had to ask, what did a Christian education look like in an environment where unbelievers had abandoned the project of education altogether? The infrastructure of learning had entirely eroded. If education was to proceed at all, it had to proceed on the foundation of Christianity. The Christians had to be the ones preserving education. What does a Christian education look like when Christians are the ones forming the institutions, when Christians are the ones organizing the curriculum? Well, these two seasons in the history of education, the season of Augustine and the season of Cassiodorus, just 100 years apart, were very different moments in a crucial transformation that occurred in the history of the Western liberal arts. We're going to be studying this story. We're going to be going back to the sources. We're going to go back to Augustine. We're going to go back to Cassiodorus. We're going to ask ourselves which of their predicaments most resembles our own. Which can we learn from Augustine's period? What can we learn from Cassiodorus's period? As we confront these questions, we're going to engage these sources, and we invite you to join us here at New St. Andrews College.